Hello, it's Guido, and I have finished the 100 battle challenge on the old Object 777-2. Let's see, overall thoughts on it. I did do a review of it right when it came out, but I'd only probably played 10, 20 battles, and I've played 100 now. So I'll give you a quick follow-on review after 100 battles on this thing. I liked it quite a bit, actually. It's a pretty good tank. I did all right in it. We ended up with a 63% win rate over 100 battles. As far as my setup goes here, we'll just go through this real quickly for you guys as soon as I find where I put it. Where is that thing? There we go. So I've already taken everything off of it at this point. We were running a Bounty Turbo, a Bounty Rammer, and a Bounty IA. Vertstab is probably a player. I really loved the speed that the Bounty Turbo gave this thing. It's decent speed-wise without a turbo, but I'll tell you what, it's pretty nice. You might want to think about the experimental equipment turbo thing. That also helps a little bit with the gun handling. That's another possibility. So I think a more standard setup would be IA, Rammer, and Vertstab potentially. Another option would be to set up another setup that's more of a fast kind of setup for the bigger maps. You could do that. I did not bother, even though I did get the field mods done with this. I didn't put a second setup on this particular one. I just ran with that. Remember that these tanks they have this free standard large repair kit, which is really cool right there. Also, this is a reward tank, so it does not make extra credits, but it does make extra combat experience, free crew transfer, and a free standard large repair kit. I believe it makes bonds, but I guess not because it's not on there. All right, so this is not one of those that makes bonds, it would appear. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. I ran my crew. It's got 4 people in it. I believe they're actually 777 crew. They are, because that's how I roll. I've got Cobra Commander in there and a couple of the special crew. They are running 4 skills working on their 5th, which is a pretty darn good crew. 26 regular ammo, 12 heat, and 2 high explosive. You're looking at 258 average pen and 340 with heat, which is not bad, and it is competitive against especially some of the more heavily armored tier 10s. You just be careful with it. Got to aim at the right place with heat, right? That's the problem. This is an interesting tank for the Russians. It's a little bit different design in that it is a center-mounted turret, more like their mediums, I guess, and a flat hull. I mean, it really does look a lot like their hover mediums, just quite a bit longer and a bit larger right there. Very interesting. It doesn't have the pike nose, but it does have a highly angled front hull and a pretty thick armor. We'll get to the numbers in just a minute. Actually, let's just take a look at how I did with this. Go over to the statistics. As I mentioned, 63% win rate, averaging 1,038 experience a game. That's good. That's where I like to be with it, about tier 8 and above, somewhere around or above 1,000. 52% battle survive. That's pretty good. 71% hits. That's lower than the server average, which is about 72. We'll look at those numbers in a minute. Damage ratio 1.45, destruction 2.71. Look at that armor at 0.67. That is useful armor. Situational turret, and to some extent some hull armor. So about 0.5 I find to be usually a nicely turreted tank that doesn't have a lot of hull. This thing is now starting to have some decent hull armor when you start creeping up to above the 50, the 0.5 kind of area. Talked about experience. Average 2,000 damage a game, a little bit low. But when you add that to the survival of 52, the tank's around a lot, right? So maybe I'm not crushing it with the damage, but I am around to help determine the end of the game. And some of that has to do with its speed and some of its survivability with its armor and its overall maneuverability. So it really is kind of the whole package for a heavy tank. Maybe you might call it a pocket heavy to some extent, kind of a bit of a heavy medium idea. And 630 assistance, you're going to see that in the example game that I have. This is higher than a lot of my tier 9 heavies just because A, I survived, and B, it's got the mobility to get around kind of like a medium does to some extent in that mid to end game and gather up some more assist, which is very useful in the experience idea. Best game was 4,745 damage and 7 kills. Whether that was the same game or not, I'm not 100% sure. All right, that is how I did in it. For the numbers, unfortunately, we don't really have the info there, but what I'm going to do, because I took the equipment off so you can't really see what mine looked like right now, I am going to compare it, though, with a 100% crew to the BZ58 because I'm also going to do my 100 Battle Challenge follow-up with this one because I also finished it. So I played these in parallel, almost exactly at the same time. one after the other. Started to get comfortable in both, and in fact got the win rates up pretty well, even in the BZ. The object started about 59-60%, and I got a little better as I went, but the BZ I climbed, I believe, all the way up to 60% with. So comparison in these two, they're similar in some respects, but the 777, we talked about that number right there. Gun loading a little faster than the BZ 58, and you can see there gun traverse close. It does have kind of a bad depression at -6. That can be very painful at times. So if you're talking about depression fighting, ridge peaking, stuff like that, that can be a problem. It's a little bit fiddly to move it around and make that work. The other thing that's odd with this that is going to surprise you a little bit, it's so low to the ground that sometimes some of the slag piles and rubble piles are high or just like at eye level. It's pretty funny. So when you're trying to go up and go hold down, you're almost half turret hold down as well. So that was a little bit odd. Aiming time is pretty long at 2.78, and look at the difference in the accuracy, 0.4 for the object and 0.35. I find these, I think they're swapped in terms of turret dispersion issues, whereas the 777 doesn't have nearly as much. The BZ has a huge bloom on movement and turret movement. That's why I liked the IA and didn't bother with the vert stab with the object 777, just to bring that accuracy down a little bit. Honestly, it didn't feel like a 0.4 gun, to be honest. It is Russian. It is Russian. Whole armor 132. Wow, that's pretty good. 115 on the sides, which is really nice. It's really nice. You're not going to get any of that triple overmatch stuff, and people are going to need some pretty good pen to get through. And then the turret at 258. Wowza, that's nice. Now the BZ, if you look at this one, 70 and 70. Ouch. This thing gets penned in the side a lot more at side scraping than the old 777 does. This is a really pretty dang good side scraper. Run down here to the mobility 40 with the bounty. I think it's 44 or 45. It really gets zipping along for a heavy. That's really nice, and almost 20 backwards. So it was just very maneuverable. If we look at the specific power, there it is, 15, which is pretty good for a heavy, to be quite honest. Come down here, the view range is a nice 391 standard. That's with 100% crew, a little extra bonus on there as well. So pretty good stats. Comparable to some extent to the BZ, less alpha, more mobility, more armor, which is weird to some extent, than the BZ 58-2. All right, there you go. How is it doing otherwise, or in the server here? We take a look at it. I've got it sorted by its win rate, and it drops. It's pretty far down here, guys, right? So I'm not here telling you that this is a top 10 Tier 9 heavy. It really isn't. In fact, in terms of Tier 9 award tanks, it's pretty far down there, right? You got the Concept, 114 Chieftain P, AE Phase, Stir. Even the Sturv and 54 Heavy are doing better than it is to some extent. It's down here, fellas. It really is. But I just found it to be a very competent and effective heavy. I'm not telling you it's a great heavy. I'm telling you, if played well, it has some good strengths, especially for a good player who can get to the mid to late game. It brings a lot to the fight mid to late game that some other tanks don't, just based on being too slow or not as maneuverable. All right, let's take a look at the gameplay, guys. All right, let's check out some gameplay with the 777. This is a pretty good setup, top tier. Got 8s and 9s, and we're here on Himmel's Overlord Dorf. Spawned into the south side. I'm trying to remember what I did here. I believe I went to the middle. Honestly, I don't like going to the beach on this map. I just feel like it limits your possibilities way too much. I do understand that, yes, they could come around behind you or come up the middle or something like that, but by the time that usually develops, the top has sorted itself out one way or the other. So either you're pushing up into the enemy team owning the top, or you're pushing up to the top already being owned, and now you're getting crossfires and things like that. I don't know, I just feel the beach is stagnant. As a matter of fact, what happens on this match, as I recall, first of all, the 2 TDs down there, I'm not that bothered by that. The G-SOAR and the other guy hanging out down there, that's all good. I have a couple guys on the 3-4 column. That's another place you can go with a heavy. Even in a heavy, I like to go up to the middle here. It just gives me more options to move east or west, maybe even push up into the bowl and have more an effect on the battle. And if I do have to go west and go down towards the beach, or maybe the 3 or 4 column, it's a downhill run, fellas. I don't have to climb up a hill to get up to the middle to help. So for an initial position, even in a heavy, I just like this spot up here. And as a matter of fact, as we talked about, this thing is a relatively maneuverable heavy. sort of a heavium, or a medium heavy, I guess, or a light heavy, pocket heavy, whatever you want to call it. It can run with the mediums decently. We have a weird situation though here, though, don't we? Because there are no scouts, and apparently there are no mediums on the enemy team who are willing to come to the middle bowl and, say, use a CVS or some of their spotting. This is a massive mistake by the enemy team. Now, you may be going, but Guido, they're down on the beach. Absolutely, but we're holding them so far. And notice the Cobra, Scorpion, and some of the other guys are pushing over to kind of punish them as they come up the hill. Now, this could be extremely dangerous if the enemy team owned the bowl, right? Because then our guys are going to try to get down there. They might be getting shot from this hill over here. Could be extremely problematic, but they don't, do they? So this is looking pretty good. They pushed the beach early, I would say. Found this guy and he sees me, and that's kind of what I was worried about with mediums early on when I first came up the southern edge of the bowl right there. But honestly, I've not seen this in a long time. I don't know what this deployment is, but there you go. As we discussed, decent mobility. Now I see it's getting pretty involved back here over on the west side, so we're going to turn around. Although the E-75 getting closed out was a huge help. I didn't really notice his hit points, but now he's no longer a factor. We'll come back this way and see what we can do to kind of help our tanks out. But they're cleaning these guys up pretty nicely over here. There's that mobility, right? I am repositioning in a relatively fast heavy. Has a pretty good power to weight. Went right up and over the hill, zinging on down here. See if I can start getting some shots. Although I'm not needed now, right? This is pretty much Rompel Stomp is on. The guys down on the beach killed 3 or 4 of them. 5 of them maybe down there. The rest of them are all camping in the back. They're going to have a hard time coming back from this. Unless we just really walk into these snipers slowly and let them kind of stay established and take shots at us. Unless we do that, they'd have no chance. So I'm going to help that right now with a little push through the middle in a heavy. The Ferdinand died, so I'm not too worried about him. If we pause for just a second and we take a look, what are we missing up there? We're only missing the T-30, it looks like, and the Arty, and the PTA. My assumption is the PTA is back there. The T-30 could still be back in the corner over here, potentially. Maybe on the ramp, waiting to pop up. That is a danger. I'm going to have to watch for that. I may eat a 750 Alpha shot. I really think he's back in the corner, just based on how many guys we have sitting over here, and he just hasn't been lit. I'm going to use this hill to cover my approach. Hopefully I don't get seen, because it would be nice to kind of surprise him. This tank does not have a lot of depression, as we talked about, so I have to work this flat spot down here. Come around here, what do we see? Oh, there's a guy. There's an Arty. All right, great. We'll just kind of zoom in on this guy. He knows he's in trouble. Boom. Nice 400 roll. Close him out in one shot. Progetto bounces. It's a heavy. As we discussed, not the most amazing armor, but not bad. Very angled. Pretty good turret. You are going to get bounces like that. Switch over to heat. I'm going to try to shoot him, but I can't see him. I can see this Proto here. I'd really like to get rid of him. So we bounce his shot. Very nice. Progetto's coming out to the side. See if we can get a shot on him. Really should be shooting AP at the Progetto, but we're holding on to the heat because we may have to go through some decent armor on the prototype. So we'll come around here. We're probably going to eat a shot. I'm just going to come up here and shoot him in the face as we run. Alright, we get shot by the Progetto. That's okay. Keep trucking. There's the T-30, my friends. Bounce the PTA. That's very nice. And now I am pushing in here, gathering up the assist, right? And this is something I talk about a lot. It's me and the Progetto. Everyone else wants to be a sniper, right? Most players in this game are going to stop in some bush or some ridge, and they want to be sniper guy, right? They want to shoot at stuff that you're lighting that's no danger to them. Not a bad plan in the grand scheme of things, but if you're looking for assist or closing out or taking positions or grabbing up real estate or all the other little things that win this game other than pure damage, this is the kind of gameplay you want. Notice I didn't just YOLO in and say, I don't know, what, go over here to the A row and just drive up the A row where it's all open over here and just let all these guys that are camping here shoot me. No, I used the cover, I moved around, I killed the guys that were in front of me, and I moved to the next spot where I could, excuse me, start to get shots. Progetto's getting himself some spotting up to 1100 spotting. I'll take it. I don't want to get clipped by the Skoda. He could maul me. And there's also the Skurda. Oh, there's 2 Skodas there, aren't there? The 56 and the T50. Between the 2 of them, they could have deleted me, so I was a little bit cautious there. We're just going to drive in on the ship tick. Yeah, he may pen me a lot. He's He's got a lot of, or a really fast reload, but my armor should hold up, and if I can just kind of ram him, get a little extra hit points there. Long reload on my tank. All right, so one of the reasons I'm backing off of him like that is I know he's going to start moving left to right, although he's kind of clueless. He sort of just let me ram him and didn't start moving immediately. He should have been circling as best he could. I want to maintain some distance, or as much as I can, while keeping the front of my tank to him, and it's really hard with a fast tank like that that moves left to right quickly or can circle to be closer to it. So it's relativity, right? The further away you are, the slower it's moving in relation to you, so that then your rotation around the hole can keep up with it. So I'm not going to just keep backing necessarily, but we'll get a little room right there. There we go. I was trying to ram him on that one. We'll back out. Doot, 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 doot. He hits a building, bummer for him. And unfortunately, I don't quite reload in time, but we go from 0 to 60 pretty quickly there. But I thought this really illustrated this thing's strengths quite a bit, especially in a same tier and lower tier situation. So it's got the speed to get around the map like we talked about. We dropped 3,185, so it can drop some decent damage despite its alpha being relatively low for a heavy. I guess I wouldn't say low average. Let's call it an average kind of alpha for a tier 9 heavy. And the bouncing at 2,440. And then just the way this tank can be played, if you see my T58-2 video, which will come out as well near this one, I have much less spotting damage or assist damage with that one because it's just a slower tank. This one is faster, so you can end game use it, especially if you have some hit points to give, right? If you have maintained your vote with hit points, you have a pretty good possibility of gobbling up some decent assist with this tank. So 3 kills, 3,100 damage, 2,400 blocked, and 1,100 assist. I'll take that any day and a win. Granted, the enemy team was extremely poor and positioned poorly, all right? But if you're going to play your tanks well, play them to their strengths no matter what the situation is at hand. That's all I've got, guys. I hope you like that. We're done with this one on the Hunter Battle Challenge. Moving on to the next ones. See ya.